In moments of pressure, players revert back to their most deeply held habits. And so what we attempt to do is put them in pressure situations that are more difficult than a game. In fact, just 2 days ago when I was at our first camp of the summer, they were playing in the full court, 2 versus 6. 2 offensive players against 6 defenders, full court. So that when they eventually go to 5-on-5 in a full court pressure situation.
No big deal.
No big deal. They've been playing 2 against 6. And so we put them in situations that are really difficult to be successful and harder than a game, where they have to have habits that are really effective, even against bigger, longer defenders, even against more defenders, to help position them to be successful at higher levels of play.
Welcome to another Coaching You podcast with the coach, Brendan Suhr, presented by Noah Basketball. Today, amazing treat, Mano Watsa, PGC Basketball's president and owner, is our guest. PGC Basketball and coaching is one of the very best, something that we at Coaching You are very aligned with. We're very close to them and all their staff. Mano Watsa, TJ Rosine are 2 of the very best basketball people in the world. The influence that they give on the game globally is incredible. You have young people from 4th grade through college that you want to have get better, send them to their camps. You'll understand why when we finish today. All I'm going to tell you is that PGC basketball, to me, is a standard unlike any other. Unlike any other. The teaching, the leadership, how they teach you to make decisions as players, it's like nothing that I've ever seen. So I highly recommend it. But when you finish listening to Mano, you too will be aligned in the way I'm thinking. So after this quick time out from our sponsors and partners, we'll be back with the legendary, undisputable thought leader in basketball, Mano Watsa. Noah Basketball is our new presenting sponsor of our Coaching You podcast. Noah Basketball is a shot tracking and data company that has helped change how coaches and players perfect the game's most important skill, shooting. Noah is a data service provider that uses machine learning and the latest computer vision technology to provide real-time data and feedback to improve shooting accuracy and consistency for professional and amateur basketball players. Noah has now analyzed over 570 million shots from countless high school, hundreds of college teams, and 28 NBA franchises. The technology is simply amazing. Once the system has been installed, players will be able to get immediate feedback on their shooting arc, left and right positioning, depth, makes or misses, and makes the data available to players and coaches on your mobile device. For more information about how Noah can help your team, visit noahbasketball.com. Coaches, are you looking to take your game preparation to the next level? Then Fast Model Sports is the perfect coaching software for you. With FastDraw, build an organized library of plays and drills and create professional playbooks to share with your players and staff. You can also download over 9,500 free plays and drills from our Playbank directly to your FastDraw account. Looking for a better way to build your scouting reports and want to include video? With FastScout, build custom scouting report templates to prepare your team best for each individual opponent. Plus, did you know with the latest updates from Fast Model Sports, you can now include video with your FastScout reports and share with your coaches and staff all within the FastScout mobile app. The combination of FastDraw and FastScout is by far the best way for you and your coaches to create winning game strategies and effectively communicate them to your team. Over 10,000 high school and youth coaches trust Fast Model Sports products to help their teams reach their goals. To order, go to fastmodelsports.com. Use code COACHINGU15 to get 15% off any FastDraw or FastScout products. Remember, go Go to fastmodelsports.com. Use code CoachingU15 to get 15% off any Fast Draw and Fast Scout products. Back with the coach, Brendan Suhr, and I am so honored today to have one of my favorite people in the game, Mano Watsa, the president, owner of PGC Basketball and Coaching. My friend, how are you?
Oh, Brendan, doing really well. Always a good day when I get to connect with you.
You know, we saw each other last in San Antonio at the Final Four, and every time we get together, you know, whether we spend an hour, 2 hours, or a day, I just want more. You know, you're one of the most engaging people I've ever met in the game and I've been around 50 plus years. You're a young cat, you know, right now. So let me ask you this: you know, you're what you're doing with PGC. I think it's one of the greatest stories ever. I started when I was playing in college. I was one of the, first go back to high school, playing for the great UB Brown. I was in the first 48 campers we ever had a 5-star basketball camp.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's
first 48
incredible.
Campers, 24 in the NCAA league, 24 in the NBA league. And I was good enough to, even though I was going into 10th grade, I was good enough to be in the NBA league. And they said, no, we're going to put these other kids in there that are older. And UB said, this is BS. He's better than all those kids. So he said, so UB said, I'm sorry, I didn't care. I just wanted to play basketball. So I stayed in the other one, and I won 5 awards in the camp: MVP, best playmaker, all these things. And the funny thing was, I went back every year, and back then you could go as a graduating senior, going to college as a camper. There was no such thing as NCAA rules on camp. And the players that I played with back then, by that time, the camp has now established itself as the best camp in the country. And then when I was in college at 19, I'm coaching in the NBA league at 5-star. I'm coaching Butch Lee, who's good, the number 1 guard in the country, at 5-star camp. I'm 19 years old. And that's how I started coaching. And I started my own little camp with 12 campers in my hometown. You can relate. Yeah. But talk about, I think, the passion that you had for the game comes through to you first attending PGC. Can you give us that whole background? I think it's one of the most fascinating love stories of basketball of all time.
Wow, I appreciate it. And first of all, Brendan, I knew about your coaching accolades. I didn't know about the playing as well. So.
I was a badass, man. I was a badass. I was a great assist man, and I never would take shots, but I could really pass.
Oh, that's
a lost start, as we say.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so my basketball journey began, you know, nearly all of us have been impacted or inspired by a coach. And that's certainly been the same for me. I had a grade school coach that helped me fall in love with the game. His name was Mr. B. He picked me up every morning at 6:15 in the morning, along with a whole host of other kids. Would go to the school and train until 8:30, and then would stay around after school for practice. So through grade school, middle school, that really helped me fall in love with the game. But I grew up in a small Canadian farming town where they played baseball and hockey.
That's what I was going to say. How about that? Basketball became your love. Yeah.
And so I knew if I wanted to go somewhere in basketball, I was going to have to find additional things to help me out. I went to a local camp in our city at a local college, went there for about 8 years. But then there used to be this magazine called NBA Digest, way back. Not sure if you remember it, but NBA Digest. My mom subscribed to it for me as a gift, I think, one year. And then there was this little ad, and all it said was Point Guard College, and it had a 1-800 number. And so I said, what, Point Guard College? There's a college for point guards? I didn't even know what it was. Just picked up the phone and called, and they said, we'll mail you a brochure. And it was this 5-day, 4-night camp experience. And as I read about the camp and this little flyer that gave some details of things good point guards had to know, I thought, I got to get there. Now, the founder, Dick DeVenzio, he had played at Duke and then went on to play and coach around the world. And he started this program, Point Guard College, that became nationally acclaimed.
Yep.
I had not heard of it. I didn't know John Wooden and all sorts of other legendary coaches backed it and supported him and his books. His book, Stuff Good Players Should Know, became nationally acclaimed as well. But I didn't know any of that. All I knew was I was an undersized point guard who needed to figure out how to play bigger than my size, who wanted to get out of my little tiny farming community and play college basketball. And so I jumped on a plane and went down to Converse College in South Carolina.
Spartanburg.
Yes, you've been.
Yes.
Yeah.
We know the coach there right now. They have a great coach, Nick Pasqua. Yep.
So I flew down to Converse College, and that 5 days blew my mind. Every single classroom session, as Dick created this hear it, see it, do it model, hear it in the classroom, see it on film with college and pro players using the habits and principles he was teaching and failing to use them, and then would go on court and not just roll out the balls and play or scrimmage, but actually put into practice all the habits and principles he was teaching. It was like a leadership laboratory and really an opportunity to discover how to think the game. And every single classroom session was memorable and enlightening and gave me a vision of who I wanted to be as a player, a student, a leader, and a person. And so I went home that 5 days. I remember I got home, Brendan, that first night, and my mom was asking about the experience. She followed my career and she was excited for me to have this experience. And we stayed up all night just talking about everything I'd learned, everything I'd experienced. And so it ended up having it was a trajectory changer for me, because I went back to my high school senior year, undersized, decent player at best, and decent athleticism at best, decent skills at best. And from what I learned from Dick in those 5 days at the Point Guard College, I became all conference, and I then had the opportunity to play college basketball. And so it was an absolute game changer. What I didn't know was just how big of a life changer it would be, or that one day years later, when he suddenly passed away of cancer at the age of 51 in 2001, that I'd have the opportunity to get back involved. He continued. I stayed in touch with him after I attended as his first international athlete to ever attend. And the rest is history, because I jumped at the chance to get back involved. A woman named Dina Evans, who was a standout player at the University of Virginia, had taken on the program after he passed away. And after 5 or 6 years, we met, and she invited me into the fold, and she started to step back. And we had a vision of growing beyond just being a 1-person or 2-person operation. And that was the beginning of the journey of growth.
Mano, what year was it that you went to Dick's camp in Spartanburg?
I attended in 1993, just going into my senior year of high school.
Yeah. How many campers did he have back then?
He had somewhere around 60 to 70 players, and he was doing maybe 400 or 500 players a summer.
So when I was in college playing in the 70 to 72-ish area, I would go down, and UB Brown was the assistant coach at Duke University at the time. And Mike Fratello was a famous NBA coach. You know, he and I went to the same college. He was 4 full years ahead of me. And Brian Hill, who coached the Vancouver Grizzlies, but also was on our staff with the Hawks. The 3 of us were all North Jersey guys. We all went down to Duke in my car. We drove down and spent 2 weeks down there in working their camp. And UB says to me one day, "Hey, we're going over to Meredith College in Raleigh." "Why?" "We're going to see, I want to show you this guy. Played here, Dick DeVenzio. He's got a camp for 30 kids. We saw what was his brainstorm before, and it was unreal. Who has a camp for 30 people? That was the limit he had. Probably because that's how much room he had.
Yeah.
And I said, this, because I remember him as a player, Mano. He was a terrific player.
Yeah.
And out of Pittsburgh, left-handed, really small. And that's why you related to him as far as a guard that was so small but so dominated in the ACC. And I can remember that. But what a vision and what a thing. How did you know that you could take this and grow it to what it's become now? Or did you?
I absolutely didn't.
Yeah.
It just, I'd been running camps for a long time. So I already had, from having started camps in my parents' backyard when I was a teenager, I had already done nearly a decade of camps, and I was college coaching. So I stepped down from college coaching in order to provide leadership to PGC. And it was one of those just believing that we could figure it out. And just kind of, there's a big difference between being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, running something that's growing. And so it was a big leap and a lengthy learning curve to figure out how to do that.
Let me ask you, so now we're at, including the fall, 225, 230 camps from those few camps that you had when you first got involved. This thing goes, basically 7 months a year, pretty much, at least. I mean, the planning's 12 months a year. I realize that. I mean, it's 12 months. Yeah. And then you have PGC basketball coaching, which is your impact on coaches throughout the world now, and teaching a whole different style of coaching than other places teach. You have great staff of folks there, great leadership with TJ Rosine and others. And how did that all mesh together, the importance of coaching to help make better players?
Yeah, well, coaches started coming back in the earliest days to come see how to teach their players how to think the game, how to make better decisions, how to lead their teams, how to build a championship culture. And we've just continued to have more and more coaches. So nearly 20,000 coaches at all different levels of play have attended a PGC camp over the past 32 years. And so a huge number of coaches have come in to just learn how to be a better teacher of the game, and for their own professional development. It's like a 5-day clinic in a sense.
Right.
And as these coaches were coming in, then we wanted to support them more. How do we support them the rest of the year? And so that was that was how PGC coaching began. And so many coaches who couldn't get into a camp because of proximity or availability or scheduling. And so we thought, how do we create online resources to give them what we're giving to these coaches who attend in person with us? And that was really the inception of PGC coaching, and now reaching thousands of coaches around the world in an online way.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. You mentioned earlier the philosophy of the way you teach. Please go in depth on that, because it is totally different, and then we'll expound on that later on.
There's so many different facets to this, Brendan. So Dick started with the hear it, see it, do it model,
that.
Which just in that is really unique, catering to all the different types of learning styles that young people have. And but in addition to that, when they get on court, we attempt to use self-discovery, where they're experimenting, they're solving problems and figuring things out, so that it's not just a coach yelling and telling them what to do, but it's their opportunity to stretch into their best self. And so we think of every session as being a leadership laboratory, where the director is not so much large and in charge, but is a facilitator of the learning, where as opposed to most camps that have stations that players are just going to go station to station and a coach is going to tell them what to do. Our director, who leads every facet of the 5-day, 4-night experience, will, and we have day camps as well that are just 5-day day camps. But the director is facilitating the experience, and all the basket instructors are kind of trained how to not coach. They're trained. They have to unlearn what they've learned about being large and in charge and directing and holding the microphone metaphorically in their hands to kind of be telling them what to do, and instead giving the opportunity for players to organize, to initiate. So instead of telling them we need 4 lines, as the director said,
sure,
it's, hey, what do you need? Who's going to figure it out? Who's going to communicate and get us started? And
Wow.
so the players are continually put in situations and environments where they have to lead themselves, where they have to lead a teammate. When I attended with PGC, Dick DeVenzia would explain something and say, over the next 20 minutes, you're going to have the opportunity to do this activity. He said, some groups are going to start within 30 seconds. Some groups are going to take 5 minutes, and some groups might not start at all. And you're left on your own to figure out, okay, nobody's figuring this out for us. Guys, we need 4 lines and 2 of you need to get over there. Hey, we only need 1 ball. Put the rest of the ball. You have to organize, you have to lead, you have to initiate.
Wow.
And so, that was the brilliance of Dick, of creating this unique leadership laboratory for players to figure out how to lead and discover how to lead.
Okay. Now I'm going to go all in on you now, brother. This is the most fascinating. I don't get discussions with brilliance like this. So I don't like the way the game is being taught now, probably because I've been around too damn long. Okay. And I when I go see a college practice, I cannot stand when I see a head coach screaming at his players, because I've learned as an educator like yourself, it's really hard to teach and scream at the same time.
Yeah.
Really hard.
Definitely.
But everywhere you go, and some of the people that are the most well-known, the highest paid in the college game, that's how they teach, by screaming, cussing, yelling. And my thing is, why isn't everyone doing this the way you are? That's a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is the right way to do it.
Yeah, I think I've got an answer to that.
Please.
When we know better, we do better.
Wow.
And a lot of times, the way we coach is often representative of how we were coached.
Absolutely.
The way we parent is based on how we were parented. So until we get a new or better model, we just continue to rinse and repeat what was done to us. And that's why we love when coaches come in and actually experience a PGC camp, because then they see a different model. It's not even enough to attend a clinic and hear about another way. You actually need to see it firsthand. So when an observing coach comes to one of our camps and they see 120 athletes from different backgrounds, different experience levels, within 24 hours, they're locked in with the blowing of one whistle, and they're sprinting and hustling like you wouldn't believe. And coaches often say, wait, I can't believe 120 different athletes. It's pin drop silence within a moment. I can't get my 12 players to lock in my practices.
Right.
I can't get my players to sprint in and out of things. You've got 120 players sprinting in and out of things. And part of it is we're not creating standards that we're trying to pull players up to. We actually co-create the standards, and we have them gain an understanding of, first of all, what are your aspirations? And then we're going to show you and teach you what it looks like to train according to your aspirations. And with your permission, we're going to hold you to incredibly high standards. And we're going to teach you and expect you to hold each other to those same standards. And so the athletes end up making each other better over the course of the week, not just our directors making them better as well. And what they learn more than anything else is how to hold themselves to higher standards, because otherwise it falls flat. Otherwise, it's just a camp that held us to high standards, and they go back and whatever standard their coach holds them to, they return to. But what we attempt to do is make sure that it's internalized. So the why is so important. It's not because the coach says so. It's not because the director says so. It's who do you want to be as an athlete? Who do you want to be as a leader? Do you want to be this type of player? And so they buy into the why. And when they buy into the why, the what comes easy.
I love that. And that's a lot of things. The coaches that I go observe at very, very high levels, they never talk about the why. They just say, do this. No. And the kids don't know why.
Yeah. And you know this to be true, Brendan. So many coaches just focus on the what and not the how.
Yep.
And so rather than just focusing on what they do, what we teach, and the brilliance of PGC founder Dick DeVenzio, was teaching it's not just what you do that matters, it's how you do what you do. If you're working on a pick and roll...
I was just going to ask for an example. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you're just running off the pick and roll, but you're not going shoulder to hip, and you're leaving a foot in between you and the screener. Well, the defender is going to get through, or if you're not doing it at game speed, or if you're working on defense, something defensively like the pick and roll coverage, and you're not communicating, well, what you do is going to flop if you're not paying attention to how you're doing what you do. Yeah, you can't leave a foot in between you and the screener on the ball screen. You've got to go shoulder to hip. In other words, you have to pay attention to detail, have to be precise. If you do it with a lack of hustle or a lack of urgency, well, you're not going to be ready for a game. So Dick introduced this acronym called SHAPE, spelled SCHAPE, with each letter having utmost importance for being able to lead and create a championship culture. And so the S stands for spirit, the C for communication, the H for hustle, the A for approach, the P for precision, and E for enhance. And basically, if you pour spirit and communication being reminders and encouragement, if you pour hustle and have the right approach, trying to make others better and looking beyond yourself to the betterment of the team, if you're precise, paying attention to detail, and if you're looking to enhance and make everything better every day, you're going to create a championship environment, whether you're a player or a coach. And most coaches don't think about the environment. They just think about their offensive and defensive strategies. But how you do what you do, which is embodied in SHAPE, is just as important as what you do.
Mark Daigneault, the coach of Oklahoma City Thunders, a longtime friend. His wife was my daughter's on her gymnastics team in high school. She was always at our house as a high school kid. So I'm very close to her and to Mark, and I think he's absolutely one of the very best coaches in the world. Mm-hmm. But the other day when they beat Minnesota, his press conference was some of the most brilliant things I've ever heard. Mm-hmm. A lot about gratitude, a lot about the vision of the organization for the last 17 years, which you never hear a coach talking about in a post-game press conference. They talk about how their defense worked and all that crap. But then he talked about, which I've never heard an NBA coach in 47 years that I've been in the league say, the reason that we're so good is the environment that has been created here.
Yeah.
And then you just talked about environment. I don't hear it talked about.
Yeah.
But, Sam Presti, their great leader, who, and understand what he's about. Sam said, when we had him a couple of years ago at one of our events, Sam said, I want everyone that comes to work in our organization, whether you're a trainer, the person, a nutrition, assistant coach, a head coach, strength and conditioning coach, or you're just the people that are cooking our meals or whatever. I want you to, this will be the best performances you've ever done in your career because of the environment we create to make you the best version of yourself. And I'm like going, it didn't matter what position you were going to be valued, and that was it. And now you're talking about environment. That might be the whole key to everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know this from all of your years in the NBA and the championship teams that you coached. There's a commitment to excellence. And it's uncompromising, and it's an unrelenting, uncompromising commitment to excellence. And the fact of the matter is, few teams have that, few organizations have that. And one of the things that we attempt to teach at PGC to the athletes and coaches that attend is how to have an unwavering commitment to excellence. And when you're committed to excellence, then it's no longer about the result. Did we win or lose? It's, did we get better? Did we make progress? And are we continually raising our standards? And usually when you're continually looking to raise your standards, results just are good results tend to be just a byproduct of that.
I think it's so incredible. Now, with all these camps, you can't believe I'm talking to you. I'm so excited today. And this morning, okay, what runs through this incredible, silly mind? Oh, you know what's on my mind this morning? All these camps all over the country. I'm saying, how did they get balls to every site? How did they get this every place? And then how do we train all these people that we have? Because it's not the same group. Because we have sometimes 5, 6, 7, 8 camps in a week.
Yeah.
How do we do that? The logistical thing, the training, the preparation, the coaching to do that. Explain, please.
Yeah.
Just your training of staff, let's say. Let's just take one item.
Yeah. So
I don't want to know how the balls get there. I'm going to figure that out. But
what we had to figure out in the early years was how do you scale something? Yeah, how do you scale a good thing? And I think it much easier to scale a product than a service. And the hardest part is how do you scale a culture beyond you? Because when you're just a single person operation, as I was when I was running my camps for many years, culture is held in a person. But what you have to extend beyond is where culture is held in conversation when you're not even present. Culture is held in how we do things around here, whether the boss or owner is present or not, whether the coach, a good team is a good team if a coach isn't at a workout and they can still do things with excellence. But if a team needs the coach to be there to yell and tell and threaten and punish and get angry, then you know what that culture is really about. And the fact of the matter, the coach isn't always present. The coach isn't always in the locker room. The coach isn't always at every workout. And so I think it's incumbent on every coach to figure out how to create a culture that can exist even when they're not present. So when we go back to training staff, what we attempt to do, first of all, is enroll them in the experience. So we like our staff to, obviously we have to bring them up the learning curve the first time they come to a camp. And what we attempt to do is pair them with a more veteran PGC instructor to kind of come up the learning curve. And then we do a lot of online training in advance of the camps, video breakdowns and videos of me as a voiceover showing what an effective basket instructor or staff member looks like. So they can go, this is how we're to interact with athletes. This is how the teaching methodology. This is the how behind what we do. And then for somebody who wants to become a director, they're going to go to camp after camp after camp to see how a director does that. And they'll fly all over the country seeing different directors, seeing different courses to understand that. And how the balls get there, well, we have to scale, we have every athlete bring their own basketball.
No.
Yeah, every athlete, every camp. They bring
that
their
is freaking brilliant.
So then we don't have
to worry about balls being stolen or anything like that.
Yeah.
You have to bring your own ball.
You bring your own ball. Indoor, outdoor, it doesn't matter. Bring your own ball. And so those are the types of things when you're scaling.
That's
you've got to
see,
out.
You solved that. I don't have to worry about
otherwise, the balls. This year we would have needed 20,000 basketballs at our camps.
Jeez, so
instead, every player brings one.
Wow. Let's go through what a day looks like. Camp starts on Tuesday, sometimes Monday, others. Yep.
It can vary, but the first day of camp, they're going to come in for check-in. The first thing that we begin with is a parent meeting. And so the parents don't just drop off their kids like a regular camp. We actually want the parents to understand the experience so they know how to support their son or daughter. So they're going to come on the first day to a 15 to 20 minute parent meeting to get an understanding of our why and how we do what we do and the challenges that their players may experience through the week and how they can support them in it. And then every night the parents get a video from me of what their son or daughter learned at that course on that day. So every night, that way they're up to speed on, here are my son learned how to stride stop, pivot out of pressure, how to read the defense with these 2 reads. Here's what they learned in the classroom about leadership and habits. And so they know how to support them in it. And they're learning our vocabulary. So they know how to support them in it. So that's kind of the parent side of things.
So it's not like when you go to college and you ask your son who just graduated from college, hey, what'd you learn? Nothing. I mean, my son's in, my daughter's in pre-med. What did you learn in school tape? Nothing.
Yeah.
Really? Really?
That's what we spent.
We did $5,000 in med school this year. You learned nothing. Yeah. But that's terrific though.
Yeah. So then parents leave, and the very first thing that athletes do is go to the classroom. And that's where we set the standards. And it's all tone setting. It's all culture setting in the first 24 hours, where they understand they're going to have to stretch beyond being too shy, too cool, or too good. You can't lead if you're too shy. You can't learn if you're too cool. And if you're too good, you're not going to benefit from the experience. You got to have a beginner's mindset. So there's 100 of those tone setting pieces to help give them a lens and perspective by which to go through the week. We call it TIPI, temporary inconvenience for a permanent improvement. Because we take the eraser to their habits. We say, this is the way you played to be successful at your level, but to play at a higher level, you're going to need to change your habits. And so we're going to spend the first 48 hours breaking your game down before we help you build it up. And so we're just all about setting tone so they know what to expect. And then they go on court and they begin learning the habits and principles and skills that will help them learn how to read the defense, become a better decision maker, develop habits. We always say, Brendan, that in moments of pressure, players revert back to their most deeply held habits. And so what we attempt to do is put them in pressure situations that are more difficult than a game. In fact, just 2 days ago when I was at our first camp of the summer, they were playing in the full court, 2 versus 6. 2 offensive players against 6 defenders, full court. So that when they eventually go to 5-on-5 in a full court pressure situation.
No big deal.
No big deal. They've been playing 2 against 6. And so we put them in situations that are really difficult to be successful and harder than a game, where they have to have habits that are really effective, even against bigger, longer defenders, even against more defenders, to help position them to be successful at higher levels of play.
And so as you go along in the week, you're not a camp that plays 5-on-5 games. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Right?
Anytime they do anything 5-on-5, they do things 5-on-5, particularly in the evenings at our overnight camps, but they're not a traditional referee.
That's what I mean. Yeah, they're not.
We have referees that are actually calling not out of bounds and double dribble and travel. Sure, those aren't permitted, but we're calling things like failure to peak. When they catch the ball, if they don't peek down court and get their eyes to the rim and they just put the ball on the floor like most young players do, that's an automatic turnover. The ball's going the other way.
How about that?
If they're not powerful with the ball and they go to what we call a Statue of Liberty position where they're weak and can get knocked off balance after they've learned it and had a chance to rep it out, that's going to be a failure to be powerful, and it's going to be the other team's ball. So we're teaching through constraints. And we use the referee as the teacher. So they learn habits really, really quickly, because if they don't, it's going to be a turnover and they're going the other way.
That I've never heard that ever before, but brilliant way to teach. So there's no one going home with the MVP or the leading scorer in the camp or any of that crap that doesn't mean anything, right? They're coming out of here after 5 days of really learning how to play.
Yeah, they're learning how to play the game. That can be used regardless of what offense or what
system they're
getting back into.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
On the final night, so they'll go through that 3 times a day. They'll hear it in the classroom in the morning, see it on film, and then they go on court and do it. And then they'll do that after lunch, and then they'll do that again after dinner. So they're basically going from 8:30 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. At our day camps, they're just 9 to 4 p.m., and the players come and go each day. But then on the final night of our overnight camps, they go through a series of competitions that they're going to fail at 50 to 100 times before they ultimately win their way out of the final night's competition. And so what they learn in that final night, and they have to put into practice the habits and skills they learned all week long as a team. So they learn how to be a great teammate, how to pick themselves up, how to lead, how to continue on in the midst of adversity and how to be resilient in the midst of failure. And that's it's a really special part of the week, and that's really the culmination of everything they've learned through the week.
I remember when you came to our NBPA, Players Association Top 100 camp at the University of Virginia years ago, and you taught my 20 NBA players who aspired to be NBA coaches someday. You taught them things that a couple of them put into use because they're all active players, and you taught them how to handle mistakes, right? And if you commit a turnover, you make a dumb play, you take a bad shot, how to help themselves and how to help their teammates. Mm-hmm. Want to share that, if you would? If you're,
we call it your mistake response.
Yes,
and very few players ever think about their mistake response, and they actually compound the mistake with another mistake of drooping or getting frustrated or blaming or making excuses. You see all the time, even in these NBA playoffs. Somebody gets bumped and they were off balance and they miss a layup, but they think they got pushed.
The referee, it's his fault.
Exactly. And they're throwing their arms up in the air and making faces. And meanwhile, the play's continuing the other end of the floor. And they're late in transition, and they compound the error of being off balance and relying on the referee with another mistake of drooping or getting frustrated with the referee. So we teach, rather than having a mistake reaction, having a mistake response. And so we have them in the classroom think about, how do I want to respond when I don't get the call? How do I want to respond when I get called for a foul that I didn't think I committed? How do I want to respond when my teammate drops a gimme layup and it should have been an assist and instead they're going the other way? And we get them to think about their desired mistake response. And we teach, when you do make a mistake, a 2-clap. 1 clap is just usually a sign of frustration, but 2-clap is, okay, I'm on to the next play. So we teach them how to, in really tangible ways, both change their mindset towards mistakes and really physical, tangible things that they can do. But from having watched a million games yourself, who do fans love to watch? Who do coaches love to coach? Players that respond to a mistake and they actually energize and elevate their effort rather than drooping. And so we acknowledge, reward, and celebrate at the camp anytime a player has a great mistake response and elevates instead of droops. And that just helps to reinforce it.
That is fantastic. And when you were teaching that day, I have no notes here, but it's embedded in my head. And literally I teach that to college players I work with now. And it's the first person I ever heard coach that. Yeah. So I gave you credit for it, but then it's now mine. But just so you know, just so you know how this thing works. But I think what you guys have done has been absolutely brilliant. What's the future of? I mean, you are dominating North America, and I know, to me, at coaching you, Zach, and my mission, in the last couple of years is, everyone in the States thinks they can coach. They don't really need to get better. We have a job, at clinics. I'll look at a play on Twitter and I'll be better, for it. No, I don't need to go to a clinic and learn. Don't need to read books. Some might listen to a podcast just because you're on. They'll like it. But so our mission is kind of get globally. We feel we want to impact players. And so the only way we feel we can impact players effectively is to provide better coaching. Mm-hmm. And I think better coaching leads to better players. And if we have better coaching, better players, then we're going to have a better game, right? Yeah. And it's absurdly simple, but I think in people that are trying to have an impact on the game, I think they're eliminating the coaching aspect of it. I don't think they think it's all about, there's phenomenal players in Europe, or all these MVPs are international players. Some of these most talented kids are coming out of Africa now. Yeah, but we're forgetting the one component that's so important is coaching. And we think that and I'm not an AAU hater by any means at all, but I know that playing, 70 games in summer doesn't make you a better player.
Yeah.
If you never practice, if you
Yeah.
don't learn anything. That's
Yeah.
my thing. And I just want kids and coaches to become better. I know you share that same vision. How do you, what are your thoughts? Because I know you're always thinking and getting better no matter what, of how to do that on a global basis, or however you want to take PGC to help the game, because I know you're committed to that and you're doing it now.
Yeah. Our mission, Brendan, is to inspire and equip every player and every coach at every level of play. And so that drives us. We've got a long ways to go. We're reaching players, from fourth graders up to Tyrese Halliburton, who attended our PGC Pro Camp Summit 2 years ago with us for 4 days. And so we're attempting to impact players at every level of the game. But we've got a long ways to go, and attempting to impact coaches at every level of the game. And we've got a long ways to go in that regard as well. But there's an opportunity for us to do much more globally. And we get invited. Last summer, we had players from 72 different countries that attended PGC camps.
Fabulous.
Which is remarkable. But there's countless players and coaches who will never be able to get to North America to get to a camp.
That's my point. Yeah.
And so we have our PGC Cares Foundation. And so one of the things that's on the horizon is for our PGC Cares Foundation to make it possible for us to go to countries that would never be able to afford to have PGC come to them. But our PGC Cares Foundation will help to make it possible for us to be able to bring PGC directors and staff to put on PGC camps to train players and coaches. So that's one of the things that is coming up next for us. And then we're just continuing to look for ways to reach players and coaches that would never be able to step foot into a PGC camp in person.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge nowadays, with economics being the way they are for all, coaches, players. That's why Zach had the mindset, the brilliance of creating an app, years ago, to just try to help and reach coaches at an absurdly low amount, to just say, hey, there's no excuse now for you to get better.
It's just tremendous. You've got so much content from the best coaches in the world on that app. I love it. And
and you guys have the same mission of trying to do the same thing, and with great instructors and stuff like that. But since we met years ago, and I'm just the biggest fan of PGC. I've always told you that. What you and TJ and your rest of your staff do is nothing short of the best of the best. And you're something that every coach should look up to try to aspire to be. For those that think John Wooden was God bless him, was a big fan of PGC. One of his great statements, it's what you learn after you think you know it all that's going to make you a better coach. Yeah. And so I challenge all of our brothers and sisters that are coaches, you think you're really a good coach. There's so much more to learn. I tell people, 35 years ago when we were winning back-to-back championships, or the dream team, or anything, I'm twice as good a coach as I was then. It's not even close. The last 10 years, I'm better than I ever was, because I keep learning more.
Yeah.
I'm not recruiting any players. I don't have to worry about that crap. I don't give out NIL deals. I'm just sitting there learning every day to get better, learning from people like yourself. And after our conversation today, I got a lot of work to do. No, I'm serious, to learn. I mean, what you guys have done, it's so impactful on the game. It is totally the model of excellence for what coaching should be about. And I can't congratulate, and I'm so proud of you and what your team does.
Well, appreciate it. That's really high praise, Brendan, and that's a testament to PGC founder Dick DeVenzio.
Yep.
And coming from you and what you've created with Coaching You, and some of the best clinics in the world that you put on each year, and then what you've created with the Coaching You app. I appreciate that encouragement. Really means a lot. I always say John Maxwell, leadership guru, says it takes teamwork to make the dream work, and it's certainly a team effort, as you know, to bring anything to life. So just grateful to have really passionate, great people who help to make our PGC happen.
Mano, I appreciate you sharing so much, because this podcast that we're doing now, humbly set up for my friend outside of Toronto, and Zach in Dallas, and me in Baton Rouge. This will go around the world, 100 plus countries, thousands and thousands of coaches at every level. And I encourage them to just don't be satisfied with who you are. I too agree with you that I was influenced by a coach, and I know I've influenced people, and I take it as a huge responsibility, and I know you do also. And UB Brown was the person that said to me, when he just had me as a 10th grader, 9th grader, I came home, my mom was a teacher, and I said, Mom, I want to be a coach. I want to be a high school teacher, a high school coach. And she was just, she said, okay. She just thought I was a young kid, didn't know what the hell he wanted to do. I went to college to do that. And I always tell the story. And when she was 93 years old and I was running and coaching the Knicks with Isaiah Thomas, I went to see her over in New Jersey. She was 93, and she said to me, I just have to tell you, Brendan, you've just been a disappointment to your father and I. I was stunned. I thought she thought I was my older brother, or something. That was a disappointment. I said, what? And she said, you never have done what we sent you to college for. You never became a high school coach. To this day, 15 years, I'm still disturbed by that. I feel so insecure that I haven't done more to help this game. She was right. Moms are always right, as you know.
You were an NBA coach.
I said, Mom, I won a few championships. We had a pretty good team, and she's making me say, like, you got to do more. It's not enough. So for all those coaches out there, Mano and I have not done enough. We're not even scratching the surface. I encourage you to keep going, keep getting better, and really inspire kids. There might be someone out there that's wants to be who you are and represent to them. So, Mano, thanks, brother. I appreciate you so much.
Brendan, loved our conversation today. Thanks for the time. Thanks for inviting me onto the podcast, and keep being the light that you are, my friend.
Mano, I would be remiss today as a huge fan, and I'm going to get, unlike my partner, BJ Armstrong, I'm going to come to a camp this year. I'm going to participate in the darn camp. I'm going to go through the learning process because I want to learn to serve better. Can you tell us, if you want to go to a camp as a kid, as a coach, how do they go about signing up?
Yeah, PGCBasketball.com has all of our dates and locations and our different courses that we offer. Point guard prep for middle school players, and then Playmaker College, Scoring College, and Point Guard College for high school players. And our fall camps are our shooting college camps. So lots to choose from. Countless locations right across the U.S. and Canada. PGCBasketball.com.
I was on there this morning before we did this, and it's a tremendous website from the standpoint of literally it can tell you that there's 10 spots left, there's 5 spots left, sold out. I mean that's pretty darn good. I mean it's really a fabulous job, and you guys just do a great job in everything you do. Thanks for sharing that. I look forward to seeing you later this summer.
Thanks, Brendan.
Mano, thanks for sharing as always. Just a reminder to our listeners and the followers that come to our Coaching You Live event in Las Vegas. We're about a month away. You can still get regular admissions, general admission, at $225. We have some limited seating for our VIPs, which is for the last 7 years has been the most requested thing and learning event that you can get to as far as on the court seating, meal, all swag bag and all that stuff. But more importantly, you're going to have NBA coaches doing all the teaching. I think it's one of the things that everyone says separates us from the rest. You want in-depth ability to learn, ask questions from some of the very best teachers and coaches in the game of basketball. You want to be there. So please go to coachingyoulive.com/2025 for more information. And again, for those of you that, love what we do, love our clinics that we do, get our app. If you can't make it out there, go to coachingyouplus.com for further information. Make sure you can get there and sign up to keep your learning and your game getting better. Till next week, this is the coach, Brendan Suhr.